Oh gosh. Hello everybody. How y'all doing? Welcome everyone. It's another episode of Healing Conversations. I am Dr. Alicia Watkins. I am a licensed therapist, social work professor, and founder of coaching with dralicia.com and the Healing Haven community. Hey, now this is a space. We're going to talk about healing today. We're going to talk about emotional resilience and everything you need to face life's most vulnerable moments. Today's conversation, we're going to talk about how do you deal with the fact that you may not know the outcome. How do you know when the path is uncertain, how are you supposed to keep going? Like, you still have to move forward, even though you know things aren't always certain. So, joining me is somebody I so deeply admire. She is my girl from back in the day, y'all. Her name is Dr. Cris White, PhD. Hello. She's got 2 doctorate degrees, one in clinical psychology and one in organizational psychology. She's got years of experience helping people navigate change, transition, identity, both personal and professional, all of the inevitable things that we all face. And I don't know how y'all feel if you're facing career pivots. How many of y'all are going through a new breakup? How many of you guys are retiring? How many of you guys are just feeling that you're in these situations where you're embarking upon something new and it just feels absolutely out of control? Hello. This conversation is here to remind you you're not alone. We all go through these things. Certainty can actually be a great place for growth. I want to get right into it. The title of our discussion is Mastering the Art of Acceptance When Things Are Sometimes Uncertain. And before I dive right on into Dr. Chris's questions, I just want to talk to you guys about how to keep up with me. I want everybody to, if you're interested in working with me, you can contact me. That's my website, coachingwithdralicia.com. Of course, you can follow me on all social media, Coaching with Dr. Alicia on Instagram, TikTok. Let's see, where am I? Facebook, YouTube, all of those places. You can follow me there. And so now we're gonna get right into it. Welcome, Cris. How you doing? Oh, let me
Thank you for
talk to
having
us, Cris.
me.
What's
I
up?
appreciate it. I love being here. Oh, it's so good to join you again. This is probably one of my favorite topics. Um, that goes back
Yes.
for me, going back to dissertation days. We're looking at how change
Woo!
affects.
Dissertation day. Okay, well, tell us dissertation days. What is going back to? Boy, that's a transition. Y'all don't know transition of going into and getting your doctorate degree is no joke. How does this remind you of that big transition of dissertation days? Do tell.
Actually, I started my dissertation topics back then. It was understanding how businesses could best leverage diversity, how they handle diversity programs, their level of, is it tolerance for actual appreciation, um, those kinds of things. And honestly, I ran into a lot of barriers when it came to collecting data. So, I mean, we're talking these big companies that had been nationally recognized as being like the top 10 companies for diversity back then. They did not want someone coming in and collecting data. So I had to go back to the drawing books and figure out, and that topic and topics around that subject was my passion, or is my passion. So kind of went to the layer underneath and realized for the majority culture, um, a lot of the diversity training and education back in the day was ultimately asking them to change, to grow, to
Mm,
evolve. And so One of the things that I realize is that when you have training and education on diversity, some people would react out of fear, anger, hesitation. And I wondered what that was about. And I think at least part of it has to do with people dealing with change. No longer is the status quo in place. Now I've got to learn and I've got to evolve. And so what at the very basic level, what comes with that from a mental health point of view? Um, and so that was the way my dissertation was born, a topic
My
at
gosh,
least.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, I'm going to mute you because there's some background noise. I think like what you're saying is quite pretty interesting because anytime somebody goes through any sort of change and they're challenged to change their position in any sort of way, they start feeling anxious. They started feeling anxiety. And we all know as mental health professionals, what happens when people feel anxious? What do? They bury it. They use their defense mechanisms. They rationalize it away, and they start to either feel anxiety or to stop some of these uncomfortable feelings. You'll see all of the range of defenses starts coming up when you have this worry that's happening, this anxiety. When, hold on, you're expecting me to change? Oh no, like I'm the problem. So if you want me to change, that means you're labeling me as the problem. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah. Um, it's such a good point because that's what automatically puts someone on the defensive, right? So you're telling me I'm the problem. If you're asking me to be the one to change, then I'm the problem. Um, and that kind of we might dive into this a little more later, but that kind of has to do with what is our attitude and beliefs about change. Okay, so let me give you an example. You have one person, you have two people, right? Two different attitudes and beliefs about change. Person number one is has both of them have this opportunity to go into a job. They don't have all the full skills, but they have most of the skills. They get hired. So there is going to be some learning curve involved. Person number one says, "Oh, heck no. I'm not trying to do that. I'm tired. Can I just do what I know? And I'm dreading this. I don't want to learn. I don't want to go through that process." Person number two is like, "Oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm going to learn more about these systems, which then I'll have more tools in my toolbox as I continue my career." So, and that happens in a lot of situations. Like one of the best things I loved about how you started today was this does not just apply to one sector of our life or other. It's relationships, it's work, it's health complications can change the way we live. you know it's to me it's life. That's what life does. It throws us changes, and what can make or break us is our attitude.
Okay, so yeah, very good, Chris. Because I'm thinking about how at one point I was going to get a job in corporate America. Well, I had a job in corporate, but I was going to get a job. Actually, my then spouse was going to give me a job at his company because they were looking for people in the mental health profession to work with what was called change management. And they were going to put us in these companies so that we can start training other people on how to deal with organizational change. And guess what, y'all? Everybody out here, change is so hard to deal with when it comes to employment that there's an extra group of people, a team of people, and their job is to help you psychologically deal with change. And this is called change management. I didn't even know this job existed. They were specifically looking at people with my type of skills to assist in what's called change management, because just as normal, like as it is normal in your personal life, it's also like this in business. People are resistant to change. It's just a natural cognition. It just the idea of doing something different. And it's interesting, you mentioned like person one could be dreading this change, And person two sees it as excitement. Which one are you guys? I see Deborah. I see you in here. Deborah will win. That's right. See, Deborah will win. She's in the chat. She's saying hello to us. Deborah will win. I bet you she's probably number two. The person who's going to be excited about change because she's got this attitude. And I often wonder, like, past experiences associated with change where you just feel out of control and you haven't quite dealt with that. I wonder if that has something to do with current transitional changes, the reason why people are struggling with change and the unknown. It could be their job, it could be relationships, or just life. They don't know how to move forward because they're living so much in the past. It could be a trigger. It could be a trigger for some people, about certain changes. What do you have to say with that? Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Alicia. I forgot I was muted. I think what people often don't realize because of how we think about changes. For example, let's say it's a change in jobs. Yesterday I was working at this job. Today I'm working at this job. If it's a relationship, yesterday I was in the relationship. Today I'm not. We often think of it just we go one step to another. But in reality, when it comes to the mental health side, there's actually something in between. So you have the status quo, what existed before, that relationship you were part of before, the group you were part of before, the job you worked at before. And before you move on to the next one, or even as you are physically moving to the next stage, there is a part that comes with a lot of unknown and ambiguity. Because, for example, let's take relationships. The fact that you go from a relationship one day and then the next day you're no longer in it because you're broken up, that's very tied to your identity. Who you describe you are. Boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, I'm the husband or the wife of. Okay, that's one of the cores to our identity. That the closer it is to you, how you describe yourself or how you define yourself, your identity, the harder it is to change, the more threatening it is to change. The closer it is to your core values and your core beliefs, the harder it is going to be to change. Because again, it's like we're getting to the core of ourselves. For example, changing from one job to another is not the same as, okay, you're at the same job, but they said, hey, can you start a half hour earlier and stay and get off a half hour earlier? You know what I'm saying? A schedule adjustment. We're talking about some major change that happens. And I think what we have often overlooked is that in the midst of moving from one status, current status quo, to the new status, there is that phase that we really need to tune into to help make or break what those outcomes are and to help us cope with that discomfort that comes with the unknown, right? So again, I was in a relationship yesterday. Today, I'm no longer in that relationship. What does that mean for me? How do I feel about it? How do I move on? Am I ready to move on? Those are the things that come with that unknown phase.
Gosh, this is really something, almost because I don't know if I can mute you or not, but this is really something because when you talk about the loss of identity, I'm thinking about the fact that my identity was this person's spouse. And that's now my identity. This is who and what I am. How about y'all? Y'all been through divorces? How many of y'all been through job changes, but even just any sort of transition? Like, I used to be married to this person. I was a spouse. We've been through it, right, Cris? And then all of a sudden, a judge says, boom, you're done. And then all of a sudden, now you have to transition and you have to let go. Here's the thing, you can never go back to being single again. Once you're single and you get married, you can never be single again. Once you're single, you step into marriage, it's like a death. You no longer are going to ever have the single status again, because now you're married. And then let's just say the marriage doesn't work. You can never really be single, because why? Because now you're a divorcee. And that's your new status. So you've been around the block a few times, and so you just transition. And I can see why it could be scary. And I work with couples, or I work with individuals who used to be in a marriage, and then I have to say, well, who are you now? You have a whole new identity, because now you are someone who is no longer with this person. You're an individual by yourself, but you are someone who used to be in this partnership. Who are you now? And you're right. A lot of people are just like, I don't know who I am. I have no idea who I am, because I've been married for so long. I don't even know what I look like now. And so you have to help make this transition, because you're redefining your new purpose. It's a new chapter of your life. And Deborah is in here. I see you, Deborah. Deborah's saying, oh my God, I used to be excited about changes, but when I get older, I'm not so, I used to not be excited, but now she get older, she's embracing it. She knows it's inevitable. She treats it like an adventure. It's a shift for her. And it's not that we were kind of like, willingly did this. We're kind of pushed into this situation. And many times it's not fair. Many times you're working a job and it's beautiful, and then all of a sudden you get this pink slip in the mail. Sometimes change is planned, but sometimes change is abrupt. You're like, what? Who am I? What's going on? I'd love to have your take on this. Like, why does it feel so dangerous to us? And what can we do to like get like Deborah? I think all of us need to be like Deborah. Deborah, you are just emotionally evolved, because we need to be like Deborah. How do we now see this as something to be excited about instead of something to be really, really worried about? Let me unmute. Okay, there we go. What do we do, Dr. Cris?
Well, there's a few things you can do. One of the things that I liked that you mentioned earlier is the fact that a lot of times these kind of changes are not planned, or they're not our choice. Right. People are happy. I was happy with the status quo. I was happy with the job I was in. I was happy with the relationship, however you want to define happiness, but I was good, and I'm not ready to change because I liked it. It was familiar. And so, that's an important part. And I think, again, going back to what I was saying earlier, when we just assume it's like we move from one day to the next, and we don't actually take a moment to reflect internally what's going on, we miss the fact that, hey, what just happened also represents a loss. Okay. So of course we can understand from a relationship perspective, good or bad, it's a loss. When it's over, it's a loss. And like you were mentioning earlier, that was an identity that I no longer have. Again, a loss. If it was a job, liked it or don't like it, it still has a component of a loss. Of course, if you liked it and you were comfortable, feels like a more significant loss. But believe it or not, even when you're not so much liking your job, you miss the familiarity. There are components of loss in there. And so we want to, part of an important step is to realize that sometimes you have to grieve the loss. And, those come with stages. Shock, right? Depression, bargaining. And then we finally get to acceptance. And so as you move from the status quo to the new situation, again, physically, you're like, okay, it happened, but internally it's a different situation, right? We're going through a lot more internal processes that we can't see, observe necessarily out in front of us. But that process, again, is what can make or break how well you manage and what kind of outcomes you eventually have when you move into your new situation, to the change.
Whoo, geez, this is really good, Chris. Okay, everybody, in case y'all just tuning in, I have Dr. Cris White here with me. She's my dear friend from back in the day. Y'all need to show her some love because she is so smart. I looked up to her so much when I was in college. Oh my gosh, she's like the best thinker, the best writer. Oh my gosh, she's like so amazing for real. And she's my go to girl whenever I'm going through some changes. Chris knows I'll be on the phone with her doing cleaning up my whole house. I'm rage cleaning my whole house while I'm on the phone with Dr. Chris, and she really needs to invoice me because she's like she's like my friend. Like, girl, you'll never believe what happened today. And she knows more than anybody how to master the art of acceptance in uncertain times. She's got what it takes. And she's been sitting here talking about change is like grieving. It's a grief process. I cannot even imagine. Oh my gosh. No wonder it feels so much like danger because what is my purpose? Like things are changing and I have all of this fear and sometimes there's shame with some change. Like, can you imagine getting fired and having to like go home and tell everybody, I got let go at my job and I was fired, or realizing that you failed in some way in a relationship and all of these things. There's so much shame. And then you internalize that. And then you start to think, like, well, what's wrong with me? How am I supposed to accept things in uncertain times? I mean, that means that I'm weak in some ways. That means I'm mentally weak. That means that I feel like I don't have what it takes to make it. How am I going to adjust to this? Sometimes it takes a lot of resources. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Let me know in the chat what kind of changes happened with you and whether it made sense. I see you, Melanated Rich Convo. Look at that. Come on, Deborah. Let us know. Anybody in the chat, please let us know if you're watching today. I see y'all in here watching. If you're watching today, please write in the chat if you wish to disclose changes that happened to you that was very, very uncomfortable and how you dealt with it. Was it scary or was it something like Deborah talked about as an adventure? But sometimes I go through changes. It was not an adventure. I did not like it. I'm upset about it. Chris, help me out.
I know, I hear you. I'm going through one of my own. And you know, and I kind of want to mention that, like, just because, you know, Dr. Alicia and I are subject matter experts in mental health does not mean we are immune. Um, you know, it happens to all of us. It's a natural part of what is happening to us internally really comes from evolution, right? Back in the day, we didn't know if let me say it this way, that unknown threat could have been deadly back in the day, right? Again, thinking evolutionary wise. And we've just carried that forward as we've evolved. As we all know, you know, stress these days, it doesn't look like a bear coming in trying to attack you, right? Or a wolf, or, you know, it's not like that anymore. A lot of times stress is invisible. But that doesn't mean it's not real to us. And we still have those internal, like, psychophysiological impact from that. For example, the cortisol that gets released in your system. When you feel fear about the change that you're in many ways, your body it doesn't matter what the fear is. It doesn't matter that, oh, the fear is, I don't know where I'm going from here. I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills because now I have to get a new job. It doesn't matter. It's the same bodily reaction to a very large extent as when the fear was a bear coming at you, ready to attack you. So that happens, and that is a significant aspect of why it behooves us to pay attention to what's going on internally. What is happening with us? You know, we don't want to have that cortisol long term. It has detrimental physical effects on us. And the great part is we have the capacity from a mental health perspective to calm that part of our system down. But we have to look at what is our internal belief? What is our internal attitude about change? For example, Deborah will win. She explained for her, she's looking at it as an adventure. That is the difference between her system coming in with eustress. So there's a little fear there, but it's exciting, and distress, where the fear is so disabling and overwhelming that you have a hard time functioning. Very distinct difference.
Um, yeah, this is really fascinating because I think how the body reacts to a physical threat is the same as the body reacting to a psychological threat or even a perceived threat. No bear is trying to attack me, but my body is behaving as if a bear is trying to attack me. Like, it's so fascinating. And a lot of times there is no bear attacking me. It's me attached to something that happened in the past. It's me just, and sometimes it's disoriented because I don't even know why I'm overreacting to this change. Why can't I be more like Deborah over here? Why does change just always work in me that is just like so frightening? I mean, that's the thing. It just conjures up the fact that maybe change represented to me something where I felt like I was losing control. Nobody wants to lose control. Nobody wants to know, oh my goodness, everything is disorienting. So I think that's like really kind of interesting. And I think it may be connected to the fact that at one point we were all very helpless. Think about children. Children are helpless individuals. Children are in control of nothing. They don't even control when they wake up in the morning most of the time. They don't control when they go to bed. They are not in control a lot of times. Sometimes I remember like children don't even know when it's time to sit down and eat dinner. It's because there's some adult that's telling them. And if not being in control is coupled with feelings of satisfaction, then you're going to be probably easier with change. But not being in control is coupled with danger. If not being in control is coupled with somebody abusing me or calling me names or persecuting me, or it's in with this, it's in with the scary moments. Whenever I'm not in control, things are scary. If not being in control is associated with something frightening, then of course, now that you're uncertain about things, it's going to conjure up some really scary times. And as Deborah, I know Cris got it going on. She's talking about you have to keep that cortisol. It's going to have that cortisol effect. Oh my God, in my belly. Yes, it has a physical effect on you. I'm doing this boot camp right now. And the boot camp, Cris, I gotta tell you about my boot camp. That's another thing. You go and you get your body scan. Girl, Deborah, got to get your body scan. It tells you how much visceral fat is on your body. Girl, they give you this number and then they tell you how off you are. They're like, your number should be here, Alicia, but your visceral fat is way too much. And then they tell you, like, if your visceral fat is too high, you could get diabetes and cancer and all this stuff. And I'm just like, this is what the cortisol is doing to you. Anyway, thank you, Deborah, for this. And that's really fascinating. Okay, comment on that, but then also comment on what Melanated Rich Convo is saying. He's saying that blended relationship was something where there was a lot of change. And then he said he just like threw up his hands. You know what? He's like, let me tell you something. I've done the best I can. I try to cope. I try to support, which is a great attitude, to be a place of support. And then he's saying an ex-girlfriend of mine, one of her kids' fathers died. Oh my good. Oh my God. And her kid's father died. Us three attended the funeral. Oh my goodness. Woo. Dr. Cris, what would you say to Melanated Rich Convo when he's got all this happening with this blended family? Talk to him today.
Yeah, my empathy really goes out to him because as a father in this situation, he's not just navigating his own reactions and coping skills for the change, he's having to manage it for the kids as well. So, my heart goes out to him. This is not an easy situation. It's hard enough for people to do it for themselves. But know too that, for him, it is I'm assuming him, by the way, but for him, it's th- there is some parts of it that's advantageous in the sense that part of teaching the kids how to manage the change is modeling it. It's not so much how you speak it. It's not so much looking in a book and looking at step one, step two, step three. Um, Being there, what are they called? Those learning moments,
Teachable
capturing it.
moments.
Um,
Yes.
it's teachable moments. Thank you. Yeah, the teachable moments. When one of the kids come and they're having a particularly bad day or a difficult time because maybe the cortisol is running in their system because it is very threatening and they don't know what's going to come. I mean, let's be clear too. There doesn't necessarily need to be, again, a bear or even a specific event that just happened in the recent past, because these things can be phases depending on how impactful or substantial the change was. And so, maybe I would imagine have times when one of the kids are just having a particular bad day, because it's not a linear situation, right? You don't just go from, okay, day one was bad, but day 100 is just going to get better and better. No, we don't. That is not the way mental health works, right? It's a wave. So, as a father, as a parent, knowing about those waves and then helping and modeling it, because you're going to be going through the waves too. But also, teaching them this is to be expected. A lot of times, what I found helps people is to just realize or hear or know what you're feeling is completely typical. This is kind of what comes when you're in the middle of a change, when you're in the middle of a stressful situation. Um, so you realize, because I don't know about y'all, but there are times when I'm like, am I crazy? Am I the only one that's feeling this? So, know that too, please.
Oh, this is really, I think this is really fascinating because, being in a blended family, it's like you have to be concerned what's happening in your household only. But then at the same time, you got other households that you have to make sure that things go smoothly, especially when they're younger children. I mean, my kids, they're up, they're teenagers. It's like, they can go back and forth. You don't have to worry about that. But that transition, can you imagine the change for the child, the transition from one household could have a set of rules that are one way, and then another household has another set of rules. And then here these children have to learn household rules in two different places, and they don't always look the same. I encourage co-parenting people to keep the same rules, but they don't have to. You can't tell the other household what to do in their household, and they can't tell you what to do either. But it's that change, it's that transition back and forth. And then when you have some grief happening, with another baby dad's grief, his position, I love his stance on it, is just to be a source of support and understanding. That's about all you can do, because you can't fix it. You can't go back in time. You can't fix everything. You can just be a place of support. And I think that is so important in those times. Hey, David, how you doing? David says hello to everybody. Anyway, gosh, we're almost at the top of the hour, Chris. I got to tell you, hey, everybody, you guys are looking at how we master the art of accepting change in uncertain times. Let me tell y'all what we didn't talked about. Chris talked about the nervousness that happens when we change. Sometimes change is coupled with a loss of identity. Who am I now with this change? The grieving the change, and the fact that in these scary moments, you have this cortisol and these stress chemicals that release through the body if change is unpredictable. Sometimes it happens and it's scary. And you could want to be like Deborah. Deborah's like, I used to be I have an issue with change, but now I learned to embrace it and I absolutely get excited for change. And I really am interested in asking my last question. And of course, you can comment with the blended family, but everybody who's watching this and you're feeling stuck, what are some daily practices or even mindset shifts that we can use to build resilience and acceptance when sometimes things are uncertain? I don't even want to talk about politics. I am going to have my politics show because there's a lot to talk about in terms of politics and mental health, but things are uncertain. What can we do to build this resilience so that we can get through these transitional times? How about you tell us, Cris?
So I would say there's five kind of categories, and then I'll go through a couple of them more in depth. But first, challenge your need for certainty.
Hmm.
And I'll just say real quick, life, the really, there is so much we cannot control. There's so many parts of it that we cannot be certain of. So challenge your need for certainty, and I'll come back to that. Number two, as part of that, let go. Learn and engage in the practices that will help you let go. And part of letting go is accepting the uncertainty. Okay, and that could look different for different people. It just depends. But letting go. Number three, seek clarity when it's available. Ask questions. So, um, for example, a change is coming. Seek clarity about those things that are going to be known. So find out what is known. That can help you, and that will definitely help your decision making. Okay, so seek clarity. Number four, kind of along the same ways, focus on what you can control. Outside of seeking clarity, there are things like keeping your health up, watching that cortisol build, um, do the things that you focus on, the things that you can control. And then number five, exercise the coping strategies, which, we there are several of those. Um, but number one, when I say challenge your need for certainty, ask yourself things like, can I really ever achieve full certainty? What are the advantages and disadvantages of all of having complete certainty? Seems like there would be no spontaneity. For some people, that might be good. There's no adventure. Um, there's no discovery zone. If everything is like set and built for you, where's the discovery? Where's getting back to you? Where is your control in a way of defining what your life should be or what you want it to be? Um, Ask yourself, do you predict bad things when you're uncertain? We call that in the mental health field catastrophizing. We don't like the fact of unknown. So I'm just going to pretend or tell myself that the worst case scenario is what's going to come true. Okay, not a bad thing, except again, remember that's going to cause you stress. And it's gonna affect you. It's gonna affect your perspective, not just your physiological being. And look at how others, maybe you have others in your community, in your family, in your support system, that they seem to kind of handle these changes fairly well. What are they doing? Talk to them. Look, find out, how do they view change? What are their attitudes and beliefs around that? So again, that was number one, challenging your need. Ask yourself these questions, journal about it, meditate on it, whatever the modality works best for you. But really go introspective and gain that awareness about your need for certainty and how realistic that is. So I said number two again was let go. That's part of it. As you do that, as you challenge this notion that certainty can be like 100% or something like that, go into the mode introspectively, as well as asking yourself, How, what is keeping me from letting go? What is keeping me from being in the present? What is keeping me from being attached to being in this relationship or being at this job? That will bring you some, again, asking yourself these questions will bring you some awareness. What kind of is going on that may, excuse me, be preventing you from moving forward? Um, Again, number three, seek clarity. If you don't know, that's pretty straightforward. Focusing on what you can control, also straightforward. Coping strategies. I mentioned a few minutes ago, focus on the present. A lot of people that struggle with mental health stages, they're either focused, in some ways, they can be categorized as either focusing on the past or focusing on the future. Focusing on the past is often associated with depression. Focusing on the future is often associated with anxiety. So when you focus on the present and the here and now, it does bring some solace to you, brings some calmness to you. And I think it was mentioned earlier in the chat by Deborah Wynn as well about meditation or just being focused on the present. Shift your attention. And it's not easy, but here's the thing, change takes practice. Okay. So when I say, yeah, just focus on the present, it sounds so easy. It's not, but don't give up on yourself. You could do it. It's just a shift. So, you focus on yourself, when you focus on your breathing, when you start realizing, oh my God, what does it mean if I go back to your breathing, go back, what are my surroundings? Where am I? Um, Quickly, number two, do some reality testing. If you have if you realize when you're doing some of that introspection that you've got some negative thoughts, oh, I'm not capable to survive this change. Oh, this change is going to be horrible. Oh, there's just going to be nothing good coming out of it. Test those. Do some reality testing of those thoughts or those predictions that you're putting in your mind. How realistic is it? Because there is, if you're continuing to think that it's going to be the worst case scenario, it's going to affect how you move, how you act, and it's going to be, um, uh, it's going to affect how you move and act, the choices you make, and your attitude about the change. And it's going to have to be visual, it's kind of like a dark cloud over your phase of change as you're morphing from, if we were butterflies, or we're morphing from the caterpillar to the butterfly, that phase is going to be filled with darkness. um Reframing your thoughts, that kind of goes with it. So when you identify that you're having all these negative thoughts about what's going to be, when you really realistically have no idea what it's going to be, reframe those thoughts. Catch yourself. Um, Reframing, also, it could be reframing the uncertainty as an opportunity versus a threat. Oh, I lost my job. I didn't expect it. But guess what? I bet there's better opportunities out there for me. I can grow in my career. So again, be realistic, but reframe. And then another thing I would say that can be particularly hard for people like me, who's a lot in their mind. I like to ruminate. I will just sit and have all kinds of a whole world, a whole series, a whole everything going on in my head, nothing outside of me. So if you're like that, do things with your hands. Do something physical. Go walk. Go exercise. Do puzzles. Do things with your hands to give you that break. Because I guarantee, in phases of change, you're going to need that break. It'll be good for you.
Oh, this is very fascinating. I mean, people just spiral when it comes time for change. And I know Deborah is sitting here talking about, you got pray y'all, pray y'all. I mean, it's just like if God closes the door, he opens up a window. Like having that mindset where you're just like, everything is working out for me. How could it not be? It's all working out for me. It's like changing your perspective. And you just laid out a 5 plan. Y'all need to know the plan. 5 ways in which this can happen. Like everything is working out for me. Nothing is is going to be against me. There's never a lose. There's always, whenever there's a goodbye, whenever something goes away, guess what? It makes room for something better to happen in your life. And it's just like knowing that when the art of acceptance is when things are uncertain, it's just to know that, well, number one, everything changes. Nothing ever stays. What, isn't there a song on that? Everything must change. Nothing stays the same except rain comes in the fall. You know, it's like that's it. The sun goes around, or we go around the sun. All of these things. That's the only thing that we can count on. But outside of that, everything changes all the time. And so it is just something that you just have to really get into and really understand that it's inevitable. You know, it's just something that it's just something that has to happen. And so who is the marble king? Women go to the kitchen. Oh my god, this is so funny. Oh my god, this is hilarious. Anyway, we got a little bit of troll, but that's okay. That's okay. Even he's okay, you know. Or he or she, we don't know the gender of that person. So anyway, I just feel like it is so important, you know, to kind of embrace it because it is inevitable. These things are inevitable. And I want to thank you so much for being here. And hold on, I gotta ban some people. Okay, yeah, so I just want to thank you for being here, and I want to just say, Cris, you've done such a great job here, and y'all contact me if you want to hit up with Cris. You should let everybody know where they can find you. You know, let everybody know where they can find you if they want to look for you. And any last parting words before we say goodbye? I'm a little distracted by some trolls, but that's okay. You go ahead and talk, give the last few words, and then we will close up for tonight. Go ahead.
Well, it's always hard to get all the important elements into the short time, but I appreciate, just like you said, I appreciate everybody joining. And thank you, Alicia, for having me on. Again, this is one of my favorite topics. So I certainly love coming on here. And I wish you all the best with your change, with the phases of change that we get.
Yes, and all y'all who are listening here, if you're in a season of transition or uncertainty, this is not the end of your story. You don't have to have all the answers. I think that, you know, confidence, it's not about knowing what's going to happen. I really do think that it's about trusting you have all the resilience that you have to meet whatever it comes. So this conversation touched you guys. Please hit the like button. I want lots of likes. Share, subscribe to the channel if you're joining me. And if you want to get a hold of me, you guys can follow me on Coaching with Dr. Alicia. And of course, you can go to my website, coachingwithdralicia.com. Hey, Cris, how do people find you if they want to find you?
If you don't mind, Alicia, if they could just they can contact me through you.
Yes.
Through Coaching with Dr. Alicia.
And let me tell you, if y'all want some services, she got 2 PhDs. So if you want to work with Cris, you could definitely go to my website. Y'all can work with her at my website. And I just want to say goodbye to everybody. I so appreciate your support. Until next time, stay grounded, stay glowing, and stay open, even when life is uncertain. I am Dr. Alicia, and this has been a healing conversation. So goodbye, everybody.